Fine, but earlier, Jaylen Brown taking his talents to Philly. As our Shams Charania reports, been breaking the news all day long, and really in the end, Shams, nothing bigger than this blockbuster. Kendrick's here as well, Kendrick Perkins, the former Celtic. And again, this was a stunner. I don't know where I'm driving to work. I'm listening on the radio. And what more can you tell us about this? Did you see this coming?
I think we all behind the scenes saw it coming, that the Celtics were going to be pulling the plug on this max duo of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They've already offered Jaylen Brown twice. In 2022, they offered him for Kevin Durant in a blockbuster potential trade. Then this summer, they offered him for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And so the thought around the Celtics was either we're going to trade Giannis for a premium player, or we were going to trade for Giannis, who's a premium player, or we're going to go get an abundance of draft picks. But why now? 3 years left on Jaylen Brown's contract, and I'm told Jaylen Brown never requested a trade, and yet over the last couple weeks, they shopped him relentlessly. There were multiple conversations that the Celtics would have with teams and really solicit offers from them, and there was a big extension decision coming up on the horizon. 2 years, upwards of $145 million. That this trade is a clear indication where the Celtics stood on that. That extension was probably not coming. And if it's not coming, where does that leave you with Jaylen Brown, who has already felt disrespected multiple different times? So as I went through these and tracked these contract talks, they set the bar so high in these talks, teams just did not meet that price. And that's exactly what we saw play out.
Wow. Jaylen Brown turns 30 this fall. Paul George already 36. Jaylen Brown's going to get his number retired. 10 years, a championship. Every other Celtic who did that got their number retired. This is a weird ending.
First of all, this is a sad day for the Boston Celtics. And as a former Celtic, I do not approve of this trade. If you're going to trade a guy that's a top 10 player, you at least got to get back a guy that's a top 15, top 20 player. And Paul George is not that. Paul George hasn't been consistently good since I was skinny. And that's been a long damn time. When you talk about Jaylen Brown, your former finals MVP, conference finals MVP, NBA champion, coming off his best season of his career, statistically, leading his team, defeating all the odds. They were supposed to be in the tanking mode. This team finished second in the East, and I know things didn't work out like it was supposed to as far as the way that the playoff run ended. But at the end of the day, if you're Brad Stevens, to me, he had already lost when he lost the Giannis sweepstakes to the Miami Heat. If you're going to jump off the...
I am still trying to process the news that the Boston Celtics have traded Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George and 4 draft picks. As a former Celtic, I have to say that I am shocked and disappointed by this move. I think it's a sad day for the Celtics and their fans. Jaylen Brown is a top 10 player in the league, and to trade him away for a player like Paul George, who is 36 years old and has been inconsistent in recent years, just doesn't make sense to me. I know that the Celtics have been shopping Jaylen Brown around the league for a while now, and it's clear that they were looking to make a big move. But I think they made a mistake by trading away a player of Jaylen's caliber. He's a young, talented player who has already proven himself to be one of the best in the league. He's a former Finals MVP, a Conference Finals MVP, and an NBA champion. He's coming off his best season statistically, and he led the Celtics to a surprising second-place finish in the East. I think the Celtics are going to regret this trade. They're not getting a player who is even close to Jaylen's level, and they're giving up a young, talented player who could have been a cornerstone of their franchise for years to come. Paul George is a good player, but he's not a great player. He's had some great seasons, but he's also had some injuries and inconsistencies. And at 36 years old, I think he's on the decline. I also think that the Celtics are making a mistake by giving up on Jaylen Brown. They've had some issues with him in the past, but I think they could have worked through those issues and kept him as a key part of their team. Instead, they're choosing to trade him away and start over with a new group of players. I think that's a mistake, and I think it's going to hurt the Celtics in the long run. As I look back on Jaylen Brown's time with the Celtics, I think it's clear that he was a key part of their success. He was a young player who came into the league and immediately made an impact. He was a starter from day one, and he quickly became one of the best players on the team. He was a leader on and off the court, and he was a fan favorite. I think the Celtics are going to miss Jaylen Brown. They're going to miss his scoring, his rebounding, and his defense. They're going to miss his leadership and his work ethic. And I think they're going to regret trading him away. I think they could have kept him and built around him, but instead they chose to trade him away and start over. I'm not sure what the future holds for the Celtics. They've made some other moves this offseason, bringing in players like Mitchell Robinson and Mike Conley. But I think it's clear that they're not going to be the same team without Jaylen Brown. They're going to have to find a new identity and a new way to win, and I think that's going to be a challenge. As I look at the Celtics roster now, I think they have some talented players. They have Jason Tatum, who is a young and talented player. They have Marcus Smart, who is a defensive specialist. And they have some other players who could potentially make an impact. But I think they're missing a key piece, and that key piece is Jaylen Brown. I think the Celtics are going to struggle to replace Jaylen Brown. They're going to have to find a way to make up for his scoring, his rebounding, and his defense. And I think that's going to be a challenge. They're going to have to rely on other players to step up and fill the void, and I think that's going to be difficult. As I think about the Celtics' future, I think they have some potential. They have some young players who could develop into stars. They have some veteran players who could provide leadership and guidance. But I think they're going to have to find a way to overcome the loss of Jaylen Brown. They're going to have to find a way to replace him, and I think that's going to be a challenge. I think the Celtics are going to have to be patient. They're going to have to give their young players time to develop. They're going to have to give their veteran players time to adjust to their new roles. And they're going to have to find a way to make it all work together. I think it's going to be a difficult process, but I think it's possible. As I look at the NBA landscape, I think the Celtics are still a competitive team. They have some talented players, and they have a good coach. But I think they're going to have to find a way to overcome the loss of Jaylen Brown. They're going to have to find a way to replace him, and I think that's going to be a challenge. I think the Celtics are going to have to be creative. They're going to have to find new ways to score, new ways to defend, and new ways to win. They're going to have to be innovative, and they're going to have to be willing to take risks. And I think that's going to be difficult, but I think it's possible. As I think about the Celtics' future, I think they have some potential. They have some young players who could develop into stars. They have some veteran players who could provide leadership and guidance. And they have a good coach who could help them navigate the challenges ahead. But I think they're going to have to find a way to overcome the loss of Jaylen Brown, and I think that's going to be a challenge. I think the Celtics are going to have to be patient, creative, and innovative. They're going to have to find new ways to win, and they're going to have to be willing to take risks. And I think that's going to be difficult, but I think it's possible. I think the Celtics can still be a competitive team, even without Jaylen Brown. But I think they're going to have to work hard to get there, and I think it's going to be a challenge.